All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of our podcast, Ask the Expert. I am your host, Serene Hamshaw, and today we're diving into a crucial and timely topic, the future of offshore wind post-election. Joining me is Jim Bennett, former chief of the Office of Renewable Energy at BOEM, with decades of experience in offshore wind energy and development. I was just chatting with Jim a couple of minutes ago, and he just told me that he was actually, or he'd been through 9 or 10 different administrations. So, welcome, Jim, to the podcast.
Thank you, Serene. Appreciate being here.
So, Jim, let's start with your take on the executive orders and memorandums. It seems that there is a real intent to hurt the offshore wind industry. It was a pretty surprising directive from the new administration. So, can you tell us what's going on here and where are we?
Sure, Serene. I'll be happy to provide you my perspective on it. As you say, I've been through several administrations and several different task forces, such as the President's Task Force on OCS oil and gas back in the late 1980s after the Exxon Valdez spill, Vice President Gore's Reinventing Government, and hiring freezes as far back as the Carter administration and the Reagan administration, either as an indication of policy or simply because of budget stalemates. And so it's not new to have this kind of dramatic changes occurring. The presidential memorandum on wind is a little bit different. It does describe a temporary halt or demand a temporary halt in approvals for offshore wind. And calls for a review process of the offshore wind leasing activities. And it also includes embedded in it is a potential review of some existing leases. But what's not so common about these is that, yeah, it does appear to be targeting wind, even if it's on a temporary basis. And it does contain some apparent positioning that is embedded in the language. And there's a lot of ambiguity in the language. You have to wonder about it with typos and casual references to things like the offshore continental shelf, which
Right.
does not exist,
And
as well
windmills.
as windmills repeatedly used, although I have to admit I use the term often myself, and the intermittent nature of wind. All of these things give rise to the question,
Mhm.
how much time and effort is being devoted. These particular examples don't really make that much of a difference, but you do have to ask the question. But at the same time, the memorandum point out some important policy questions, such as the use of subsidies, the reliability of offshore wind, and the leasing process.
Mhm.
So all of that together is something that we need to pay, obviously, a lot of attention to.
Right, and to your note about the language of the memorandum, for me, it's clearly coming from someone who doesn't really know the language of this industry, or not even from the industry. So I'm wondering actually what effect it is this having on the offshore wind, and how will it affect the industry in the future?
Well, it is definitely having an effect on the industry. The just the results of the election itself had an effect, and these direct impositions, if you will, on offshore wind are pretty clearly going to have a negative effect on activities in the offshore. But we also need to, it's not just the direct effects of a temporary halt or the direct effects of a review. We do reviews all the time, but it's also the indirect effect of the apparent desire to slow down the wind industry in a very, very big way. So it's having both direct effects and indirect effects. You would think, with the narrow reading of the wording, that projects that have a approved construction and operation plan are in a position to go forward, but there's a chilling effect of doing so with the business risks that
Yeah.
might be associated with it. And then there's also what I'm going to refer to as deep permitting, and that's that even though there might be an approval for a
Mhm.
construction operations plan, there might be embedded in the process additional approvals that are on the federal level after the construction operation plan starts to get implemented. And the question of whether or not those sorts of approvals, which might be minor approvals or routine approvals, are going to be mechanisms for holding up projects.
Do you think there will be any effect on the COP or the permitted lease, because those are legally binding contracts with the federal government? So just based on the reading of the memorandum and the request to review all of these permitting or all of these leases, what's your take on that?
That's indeed the question that I'm positing right now, and that's that the assumption initially would be that if you have an approved COP, you're in good shape to move forward. But aside from the chilling effect, it is not clear the extent to which the application of a halt on federal approvals will go into effect, and it may affect some approvals that would occur after the COP is being implemented. So it
Mhm.
has, again, I refer to both direct and indirect impacts, but appropriate caution is having an effect on industry activities.
Hmm. What do you think the appropriate path forward? Should the industry just throw up its hand and hope to wait it out for the next 4 years? What are the
Well,
alternatives here?
um, I'd like to note that I think embedded in the language that we've seen is, and some of the other orders, such as Unleashing America's Energy, uh, there seems to be this notion of what I consider a false choice between conventional energy and wind energy. What all the
Mm,
indications are that the demand for energy is going to grow, and it's going to outstrip both conventional and renewables easily. And stacking conventional energy up against wind energy as an either or proposition is part of the problem. If we can get past that,
mm,
I think the appropriate path forward is to look objectively at what might be the results of this review that the administration is calling for, and address some of the concerns that have been identified, such as subsidies, such as reliability, and such as leasing. And even though the industry may not be moving forward at the pace that we had been hoping for or that we had come to be expecting,
mm,
if we can find some middle ground, I think there's the possibility for the industry to move forward in a positive way, and in a significant way. I will note that I do not think that we should just be kicking back for 4 years. We should be building on what foundations we have, and to that
right.
end, if we help define some of the parameters that should go into or should restrict offshore wind, that would actually help move things forward. But to that end, I mean, we have a designee for this Secretary of the Interior position in North Dakota, former governor of North Dakota, Doug Burgum, and he comes from a very strong all of the above strategy. And insofar as he's in a position to help identify the policy, and he's in a strong position to do so, not
Mhm.
only as the Secretary of the Interior, but he's been designated the energy czar of the administration, and he's chair of the newly created White House Energy Council. I'm not sure what all of those terms mean, but they sure sound pretty important.
Yeah.
And uh, in combination with his role as Secretary of the Interior, he's in a very, very strong position to help develop a comprehensive energy policy based on some kind of rational review of the facts and an objective review, not one that will simply pick winners and losers, but will support a very reasonable way to move forward. And I think he's in a position to demonstrate some very much needed leadership in the energy policy arena for the nation.
That's very interesting. Unfortunately, we just reached our time, and really appreciate your insights on what these changes mean for the future of offshore wind. So thank you so much, Jim, for joining us again. And to everyone watching, now is the time to stay informed and stay engaged. And I think it's also our responsibility to educate everyone around this industry, and also to push for the future we believe in. Offshore wind has come too far to be sidelined, right? And we have already built a momentum in the past couple of years, and this industry will continue to innovate and move forward. So thank you for watching our podcast, Ask the Expert,
Thank you,
and
Serene.
see you next
Appreciate
time.
it.